Strap in for a roller coaster ride where curiosity, humor, laughter, and the odd case of wisdom is applied to understanding the adventure of life.
Welcome to the Rawle and Gene Show, the power of coaching, guided by two knuckleheads who invite you to sit in the front car with them on this ride.
Trust us, it's not as serious as it sounds.
And high fives are included. Welcome to the very first episode of our brand new podcast, hosted by the dynamic duo, Rawle over there and Gene over here. As experienced coaches ourselves, we'll be pulling back the curtain and sharing our candid insights on what we've learned about ourselves in the wild ride called life. Join us as we dive into the art of showing up, uncovering our blind spots we never knew we had, and how these discoveries have shaped our lives in surprising ways. You can expect plenty of laughs, light bulb moments, and maybe even a few heartfelt tears as we journey together through our ups and downs of personal growth.
Okay, that out of the way. I thought I was here to discuss sports.
Wow, this is awkward. We had to get you here somehow, Rawle.
No, I'm looking forward to this new venture. All right, welcome to our first podcast. But This is a good way to do a pilot. We didn't write a script. We're just kind of weird it as we go.
I think that will be it's like how life really is, isn't it?
Because you can write all the scripts you want. Sometimes they just don't pan out.
Well, and I think about like how long that we've known each other now and been talking about we should do something together. We should do something together. It's been years.
Yeah.
And I've had you on my show a number of times.
Yeah, like I was saying, though, I think this is a great way to your point, we've been talking about it for a while, but I also trust things happen when they're supposed to. Obviously, this is the right time, I think, not just in our lives, but just in what's going on in the world. There's a lot of discomfort within individuals and obviously the collective. To me, this is a good time for us to encourage people, talk about the importance of guidance, coaching, whether you want to call it a life coach or whatever. I do use that term. I started off with that term, but I'm a guide, whatever you want to call it. But it's always, to me, it's important to always have someone that when you need to sort things through and too emotionally close to the experience, or you're too much in the experience, to have someone that can help you step out of it and maybe look at things in a different way. If you're looking to really do that deep internal scrub of yourself, to have someone guide you through that process. This is why I think the timing is right, because definitely in some discomfort on this planet right now.
Well, the discomfort's always going to be there. It's just how are we being aware of it? How is it showing up? And how do we want to be through all of that? And I say we, and I think mostly when I use that term, broad stroking it right back to me. It's like, how would I want to show up? And how is working with guides like Rawle, because Rawle's been my coach in the past, my spirit animal and guide and all the things, the value of it. And I guess maybe it's an opportunity to share what we were hoping to do with this and what we're going to, maybe we're going to make a commitment here about how frequently we're showing up and what does that look like and how is it different than like the live cast conversations with how this is an opportunity for us to riff around. I think one of the things we've talked a lot about is like being open to sharing what the experiences have been like for us in our own growth and how our training has impacted that growth, how working with people, be it coaches, therapists, guides, masterminds, how all those things have made a difference in our lives and how they continue to show up to make a difference in our lives from the boy I was in man clothing to the man I feel like I'm starting to become and work into.
No, I agree. And I don't know what this is going to turn out to be. I'm going to just be plugged into the process and to be open to what comes and to have fun with it. Yeah. Ultimately, this podcast is in conjunction with the workshop and the mastermind that we'll be doing. And I had this idea, let's just do a podcast that coincides with those things, or maybe even links with it. I'm not sure. Yeah. But I would like this to be a portal where people can come and listen if you're struggling, and maybe Gene or my voice is a voice that you feel that might be beneficial to you in the work that you need to do, because this isn't about you got to choose Gene or I, or what. No, my voice is not the right voice for everyone. But this is also a place where I want people to come and ask questions. And if you're struggling with things and if you're open to talking further, we can do that. I want people to feel comfortable coming here to just listen. Maybe every so often I'll break out a poem as a poet, and every will share information. But the biggest thing I want to share, yes, I am a coach, but I'm also someone that has a coach, someone that has used coaches, and to, to share a bit about my experiences with coaching, because I'm not looking to share to glorify, oh, look what I've done. But I found that when you present yourself and you share your experiences, not just the good experiences, it's not that it makes you more human. It just makes you relatable to some degree. People
Yeah.
understand. I am not your traditional coach. I didn't go to school for it. I spent my years in the business world and through the various trainings in that environment. And it's led me to where I am. And to some degree, a lot of the positions I had back in my corporate days was around people, developing people and teams and so forth. And
Right.
using tools like the 7 Habits and Myers-Briggs and True Colors and a multitude of other things in helping to develop my staff and people that I worked with. And I was able to manage. I just want to see what is only going to be as successful as the people that use it. Hopefully, not just those in our circle, but those outside of our circle will get a
Right.
wind of this and want to come in and spend some time. Now, how often do we do this? I don't know. Do you want to
Guess
make
we're
a
gonna find
commitment
out.
right now? Do we do once a week? We initially
Well,
talked about keeping this at half hour.
I think we both understood this one was probably not gonna be a half an hour
No,
because
not
I
this.
yet to see one of our conversations be constrained by something as ridiculous as time.
That well, that's kind of I almost said it jokingly because I do a recital every Sunday morning. I say not every Sunday, every third Sunday of the month, and I try to keep it 2 hours. I bet it's about 3 hours, 3.5 hours. But no, we'll do our best to honor people's time
Yeah,
and keep it short and concise. There's a value to keeping things short and concise. And we're inundated with so much information today. I think some people, not all, but some people are definitely tuning out to things. And I truly believe, not just because we're involved, I believe this could be beneficial for people. It's my practice when I'm working with people. Or I'll ask, are you ready to be brutally honest with yourself? And a lot of people will say, yeah, but
until it's time to be brutally honest, then
and
it's
they're
like,
like,
"Oh,
no.
I don't wanna do
And
that."
yeah, for me, going back to my awakening, that moment where I had that epiphany that led to me really stepping into the abyss. I was one of those people that said, "Oh yeah, I'm really honest with myself." I was not. I was lying. I was the furthest thing from being honest with myself. And I want you to sit there and then think I'm some quiet. Yeah, I still will tell little white lies. Why? Sometimes I just don't want to be bothered with the drama of telling the truth. But I tend to keep it to things that are what I consider frivolous, not big and important. So for me, it's not about being perfect. It's about learning from the things we've done so we
I like
can
that.
understand what we can do today and possibly for tomorrow. Because if you haven't figured it out yet, life is very repetitive. You keep doing the same things over and every day. And my thing is, if that's the case, then, be repetitive with the things you really want to do.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, my friend. Should maybe
If we showed up every week with a topic or a question and we deal with it and then we go from there, and or if we do develop an audience where people want to come ask questions, and that's what I'm actually really hoping people come and ask questions and want to know more about our workshops that we'll be putting out soon and the assessment that's going to lead to the workshop and then from that to the mastermind. But also, if you have life questions, to me, that's the key to coaching. I think I've
yeah.
used this example with you before, Gene. Going to the gym. Yeah. Just after Harris's mom and I, when we had Harris, because I ballooned up, I'd gotten up to almost 300 pounds. And not one of my friends said a word, which I found very disturbing. But I realized I put on weight. And then when I went in and signed up at the gym in my neighborhood and go to the gym, but I'd only want to lift weights. And then I decided to hire a trainer. And he wrote out this really cool program. I don't only want to do the weights. And he keep telling me the most important part of this is cardio. You need to do the cardio. Anyway, yeah, I was going to the gym. I was working out. To me, that was good enough. Some measurement times, no improvement. I think we did 2 or 3 different measurements, no improvement. And then I started getting angry with him, getting pissed off with him. You're not a good trainer. What are you doing? And he goes, are you doing the cardio? Anyway, long story short, he fired me because I can't work with you. You talk one way, you walk a different.
What was it like for you in that stage of your life? What was it life like, and how did it feel to get that feedback to go, you're talking one way, but you're walking another?
Oh, I was fully in victim mode. So it's like, what the hell are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. I didn't want to accept what he was saying to be truth. Because if I did, then it would force me to really look at myself. But I think a part of what he said did seep in because I went to another trainer, I think maybe after a month after that encounter, and asked her if she would train me. And she goes, why would I do that? She goes, I know the other trainer. We all work together. Oh, because I'm in agreement with him.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what was said, but she agreed to work with. And she goes, not 2 or 3 times. The first time you don't honor what you say, I'm done. And she goes, all I'm asking you to do is commit to doing cardio. She goes, you don't have to go crazy. Show up in the morning, 20 minutes on an empty stomach. Go home. Start your day. You can come back and anyway, whatever it was. For whatever reason, I listened and I did it. And the results started to show. And it was probably one of the times I was probably the fittest in my life. I started off close. When I weighed in, I was like at 285 in January of 2003, I think is when I started. And by September of that year, my body fat went from 37%. I was down to 22% because I committed to myself, not to them, but to myself. And I had to accept that truth. And I think that's probably one of the first times, the second time when I was brutally honest with myself and go, it's not them, it's me. I'm the problem.
Is it me? Am I the drama?
Yeah, it is. It's always us. The
Yeah.
good, bad, ugly, and beautiful. Everything that happens for us to learn and grow from. We always welcome the good and beautiful experiences, and I can only speak for myself. I don't really learn from the good and beautiful experiences.
I had a client that working with and we were talking because he's in a moment of celebration, but it's been a hard work and a lot of like self-doubt creeps in going, when am I going to see the results? And that's that ugly and that's that uncomfortable place of the air quotes grind here is that's where you got to really put it in. But like the beautiful side of it is, I agree. You're going to learn a lot when you're in being under pressure, however you choose to face it. And the quicker you face it, the quicker you actually get through it. Then when you get through it, there's the beautiful, there's the oasis, there's the moment to refill your cup. And I think the power of the beautiful in this metaphor here is that it allows us to refill our energy and like get us psyched up to go back on the track as well.
And you said something in that, in the way you said it, I don't know if you meant it that way, but it's hard work. Yeah, it's hard work.
Yeah.
And to generalize a bit, I think some circles, hard work is bad. And we're constantly looking to avoid hard work. And yet that's the beauty of this whole process is the hard is what makes it worth it. Because you're going against whether it's conditioning. For myself, when I talk about being stuck in a victim mindset, a victim mentality, I was stuck in a victim mentality because there were key events in my past, in my childhood, in my teenage years, and my early adulthood that were markers that I didn't understand I couldn't understand why, that why question. And because of that, it fueled what the karma that I brought into this world. That's why karma is not what goes around comes around. It's the energies that you brought in from another existence. And I just
Right.
had an experience that I was telling you about a couple of weeks ago with my mother and my stepfather, realizing that I have these deep rooted expectations of wanting to be accepted or being protected. I always felt like I was easily discarded, even as a kid, just because of the various events that happened. And so I was stuck in this victim mentality. But having said that, how else would I have known if you're talking about victim mentality, then we're going to use the word victor. How could I have gotten to a victor stage if I hadn't gone through victim? And the key is not for some people go, well, why do you have to go through it? Because we all have to go through it. How do you know light without dark? So we have this thing about we don't want hard work anymore. And we don't want anything bad and anything ugly to happen. That's not in my control. I can't control that. In my own life, things
Yeah.
will happen. And the question is, do you trust that you have the skills and the tools, the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual fortitude to deal with whatever comes?
Yeah.
I don't worry
We
about
tr
trusting other people. I trust that I have the skills and abilities to deal with what comes.
I love that. Is like having that trust in yourself is at the utmost of everything. Can you become the person you trust the most?
Yeah.
And what's that journey about becoming the person you trust the most? And that's like
Yeah.
an underpinning of what I do with my clients, and what drives me is like learning to become the person I can trust the most. That's an important piece, is like when all the cards are down, it doesn't matter now what happens externally, even though Rawls' dogs are barking away. It's all good.
Yeah.
We're gonna let it in too, right? It's like sometimes dogs just have to bark. And
Well,
is the trusting of ourselves is like when all the cards are down, can we trust in our responses to the events that are occurring around us? That's that trust, right? Are we going to play from the place of reactionary, of going from some old programming, which served us while we were younger and there was a purpose for it and you can bless that? Or are we going to choose to act the way that we want to act and towards who we want to be now?
and this
That's
is
that
why,
bigger leap. And
yeah.
that takes a lot of work because all that old programming is wired into our survival. Like at our core, there's a component of it that's there to help us survive. And we've taught
Yep.
ourselves at some point that's how we survived. And it probably did help us survive when it first showed up and when
Oh,
we
it did.
first used those pieces to help us survive. But there's a difference between surviving and thriving. There's
But you
also a
see,
difference between, are we being chased by our saber-toothed tigers anymore? And is it okay to give that piece of us a rest?
but this is why so many people have a problem looking back at their past because they look back at their past with fear, loathing, with shame, with guilt. I invite you to look back at your past and to step into your vault of wisdom. Wisdom lives in the past, does not live in the now, does not live in the future. It's attached to the experiences we, and that's why a lot of people are afraid to go back and look at the experience because some of them were extremely harsh, very harsh. When you use your past as an anvil to beat yourself up, you will just keep repeating the same patterns and be stuck. So that's why I think, coach, my second earth angel, I called him when I had my epiphany, I had two, one earth angel that showed up that worked with me for about 2 months. And then that led me to the second one where we really got deep and honest. And she was hard on me. She goes, I'm being hard on you because you're stubborn. She goes, not this you where fear lives, the inner child, the hurt person, whatever, likes you the way you are because it gets what it wants. And to your point, there's the victimhood and wanting to run away. They served us. It kept us alive for a period of time. For myself, leading up to that epiphany, I was just feeling I was doing the same things and nothing was working. And it was bothering me in a way it had bothered me. It bothered me before, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. It was just this heavy cross that I was carrying around. felt like I was weighted down and nothing
Yes.
that I did could unburden it. And at this time, I'd already had Harris, my son, who I loved dearly, and he wasn't enough to drag me out of that. So this is when I realized if I don't get right with me, none of this is going to matter. Doesn't matter how much people love you and how wonderful they think you are and how they see you. If you don't see yourself that way, if you don't feel that way about yourself, it's not going
I want to add on to that there a little bit is when you're in that spot that you were talking about, because I've been there too. And
to.
when you're in a position that you've got all this external like validation, like people loving you and saying, hey, seeing what you can't see. But if you've got like that shield up and you can't let that in, the first step I think is not about going, oh, looking in the mirror, going, after spending 40 years of telling yourself you fucking hate yourself, going, I love you. Because all that's happening right there is going, that's a liar. You're looking
Mhm.
at a liar in the mirror. What if you could flip that around going, I might not see it. I might not feel it yet. But what if what they're saying is true? What if there's something that I can go, I'll trust in them for
Yep.
what they're saying and just like letting their words sit. It's a practice. Is like, how can you practice to start to break those molds? And just like going to the gym, you're not going and lifting 100 pounds a dumbbell right away. You're not running at a marathon
You
out of the
can try.
gate. You can try, but guess what? You're going to end up in a heap,
Yeah.
a
You can
complete and
try.
total heap, and probably in worse off condition than you began with. But it's like, how do you start that incremental increase? How do you put the reps in? I was like, let's just put the reps in today. Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Let's just put in one rep that's a little bit beyond
Yeah.
where you are now. And maybe instead of looking in the mirror going, I love me after spending all that time going, I hate me or I hate this about me, being like, I'll be kind to myself today. I'm going to find an opportunity to be kind to myself. Doesn't mean that you have to fall in love with the person in the mirror right away, but could you be on the road to doing that?
But
Maybe you don't trust the person in the mirror today, but could you be on the road to learning how to do that? And that starts real small.
it starts small, but it's a big small.
Yeah.
Starts with a choice. You have to be willing to make the choice and then commit to the choice. And every day, and not even break it down further, every moment, you have to make the choice. This is why it's hard work because you have to be willing to make that choice repeatedly. A lot of times we don't like repetition. And yet I always tell people, do you like breathing? Because breathing is repetition. And if you don't breathe, you don't live. So get that notion out of your head. And a lot of times I want to blame it on the workshop, the facilitator, whatever. It's like once you left that event, what did you do? Did you actually make a solid commitment? And every day you're going to do something little that's going to improve yourself or something little that's going to be to the coaching or the training or the workshop that you just did. And I find a lot of times we're lazy with ourselves, but we want to blame others. You have to be willing to be brutally honest with yourself. You can't fix it if you don't identify. And then
Yes.
you have to make the choice that I am worthy to make this choice again tomorrow. I'm going to get up tomorrow, make my bed, and I'm going to do what I have. And you have to repeat it, keep repeating it until it becomes a habit. And even then, you have to keep repeating it because that default never goes away.
That's an important side right there. That's the point. Is like that default part never leaves you.
So,
Like you're never getting rid of any of these
no,
previously learned habits. And that's really all of our mental states are trigger, emotion, thought. Like that's mental states are habitual because they follow that pattern. But you can start to capture it. You can start to change it and make the choices around it and go, I am choosing not to go to default mode. I'm choosing to look for variations on this that lead me in a different path. I know if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to get the same results I'm getting. And
yeah,
if I don't like the results I'm getting, the only input to change there is what you're doing and how, I will say, how you're being with it and how you're doing it with it. It's like the feeling and the action. The other piece that when earlier you pointed to your head and your heart and you're speaking to your vault of wisdom, that opens for me is seeing our heart as our vault of wisdom. And this is like a vault of knowledge. And we have to learn how to take both of those pieces and influence them appropriately.
because they're just tools. The greatest thing I think I've learned is to be gentle with myself. And when I talk about being gentle with myself, I could still step into victim mode. Something harsh can happen in my life and I can step into, but I also know how to step out of it. I also know I don't want to be in that. What I mean by that is I allow myself to feel the emotions and I don't question or beat myself up for having those feelings. And then I've learned through practice, give it some time. Like the situation I explained to you a couple of weeks with my mother and my stepfather. I allowed myself to be a victim because it's a situation I've been dealing with since I was 12 years old. Within 24, 48 hours, I said, okay, now I'm going to step out of this so I can really understand my feelings and my emotion. And that's when I actually figured out this wasn't about this recent situation. This was something that I think I came into this and I realized it was around expectation. And I even went deeper into that. Why? Because I've done that work and I've been taught how to do it. So I don't tell people, it's just like you just said, whatever things that are ailing you or bothering, don't go away. You just learn not to get into it if you commit yourself to doing the initial work. Right. I think a lot of times when people go to coaching or go to these workshops, they think these aches or whatever, however, whatever word you want to put it, they go away. They never go away. And they're constant. I've learned not to beat myself up for thoughts that just show up. What I'm in control of is the thoughts that I put into them. What shows up and all kinds of thoughts, great thoughts, bad thoughts, ugly thoughts show up. I just don't beat myself up because I'm in
Right.
charge of which thoughts I add to my internal conversation, which thought goes around on the hamster wheel with the what thoughts I'm going to put into the world. That's what
Yeah,
I'm in control of. That's really all I'm in control of and what I say and how I say it.
I love that because it
Right.
reminds me of like on a old episode of Impact Theory, this guy named Trevor Moda was the guest, and he worked with athletes at the time, and he found that when they stopped focusing on having positive thoughts and just changing the prescription was like, don't put them out of your mouth. You can have them and let go, like you're saying, of the judgment of, oh, I just had that thought, but you don't have to speak it because
Right.
when you speak it, that reinforces it. When you write it down, that reinforces it. So it's like looking at those places where you could just even stop and change that pattern of going, I've had this and that's okay. What do I now choose to reinforce?
Yeah.
Hey, it's okay that I just had that, but I'm not living there.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus going, oh, I'm a piece of garbage saying that out loud, right? Is like even just those little, there's a tactical thing for everybody to take. If you're struggling with negative self talk, we all do. I do all the time.
I still get
But
it all the time.
it's a choice to spit it out loud and bring it into reality.
Yeah. Sorry.
The
Go ahead.
tactical takeaway here today is that's the one place you want to work on over the next week between while we're doing our episodes. We'd love to hear about that from you. Is what was it like not putting that into reality for a week?
Yeah.
Consciously choosing not to bring that into reality.
That's part of being gentle with yourself is
Yeah.
developing those techniques that you can really have different conversations. I think I shared with you, I do 2 online poetry shows. And before every show, voice of doubt comes in. Well, you can't do this. It's going to be terrible. No one's going to show up. Blah, blah, blah. Still to this day, I was telling
Yeah.
my sister, she goes, really? You? I go, yes. It's relentless. It never stops. I've just learned not to give into it. I have too much intel now in my vault of wisdom that says that's a lie. That's an irrational thought that I do not need to give any energies to other than thank you for showing up. Thank you for the reminder. You're alive. You have to go now.
Oh,
And it goes.
the other perspective I play with is, oh, thanks for reminding me that I care.
Yeah.
You show up so much to be like, I really want you to do a good job. That's the underlying message I now take from it and go, hey, high five. Thank you. I'm going to put you, the little saboteur, in the car. You could stay there while we're doing the thing. But thank you for reminding me that this is about caring about the other person or caring about being in service or whatever that is in that instance. Is like, there's a whole bunch of ways to view what that message is or what the messenger is trying to really get across.
Yeah. Ultimately, why we're doing this, we do want to be of service. We want to help reach. I always tell people I'm a servant. I'm a servant to our humanity. Yeah. But make no mistakes. There's a business component as well. We want to attract clients. We want people that truly want to invest in themselves, not just in time and energy, but money. We want to work with people that are serious about truly transforming themselves and doing the heavy lifting, doing the dirty work. I I've worked with other coaches. I've worked with other people that have done workshops, and they always seem to feel unfulfilled by what they've gone through. And just I'm listening to Gene and I, we're saying a lot of the same things, but we say it differently.
Yeah.
There are two different voices here, two different styles. But ultimately, this is an avenue for you to take advantage of. I do believe we're transforming. I do believe we're at that precipice where we're looking at what does it mean to be human now? We've got thousands of years of intel to draw from. And if you look at history, we've been repeating certain patterns. And maybe we're at that point now where we're saying, you're ready to do human 2.0. But in order to do that, we have to do different. And what's the we? The we starts with the I. One of the things you learn in the 7 habits, when you look at the different paradigms, there's the me, the I, and then the we. And a lot of times people want to jump from the me to the we. You have to go through the I before you get to the we.
Yeah.
You can't just jump right into love if you don't know what that means, if you don't really understand what the we needs and how the we operates. And the we operates when the I is strong, when you are strong with yourself, when you're strong within. It's like this human heart. I use this all the time, not so much because of the mechanics of it, but what it represents. In the human heart, when it's pumping fresh blood to the body, the first thing it feeds is itself, but it only takes what it needs and then it distributes the rest. I invite people to be like the human. Make yourself strong mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Who are you? And what are the things that are holding you back from how you want to be as a person? Because you know inside if you feel good, if you feel happy, or if you don't. That's the brutal honesty that I invite people to.
And as well, we'll be building a mastermind around us supporting people raw from the spiritual coaching side and me from what I like to call lifting the fog. And really that ties into how we connect that into our more action around business and life and some hobbies. And I believe there's a beautiful relationship between what we both do. And that's what we're bringing out and
Yeah,
through Peel
definitely.
Back.
And I know one of the things we're both committed to is helping leaders. And
Yeah.
when we talk about leaders, I'm not just talking politics. I want good leaders in business. I want one of the things I'm getting involved with that's neither here or there. I'm sure I'll talk about it down the road is ethics. Professor friend of mine out of India very much into ethics. And I think we're missing ethics today, but we really need to redefine what that means, not redefine the original meaning, but what does that mean today? When you talk about ethics, are we talking about an operating standard of how we all operate, or are we talking about what we stand for? To me, we have an opportunity to, whether you want to call it namaste or spiritual business, I prefer to use ethical business, not just in where you work, but even in your home and how you operate. All I know is this: more times than not, doing the right thing is hard to do.
Yeah.
And this is where people think they don't have choice. It's not that they don't have a choice. They just don't like the choice that's being presented. And a lot of times doing the right things is not easy and it may not benefit you, but that doesn't make it wrong. And I think it's something we need to look at in order to really understand ethics and how you want to walk this walk. Trusting yourself and having the intestinal fortitude to do that every time.
doing it.
Yeah. And you talked about earlier, we've been talking about doing this for years. All I know is right now, today, as we're
We did it.
winding this up, this feels, this feels, this feels timely. And to be doing it with you now, knowing the trials and tribulations you've been through over the last 2 or 3 years and being fortunate to be invited in helping you through those processes. This is the right time. That's why I trust the time. That's why I always trust the universe and her timing. So what we're doing, this is our time. And I do believe it's timely. I walk a very simple walk. I'm just hoping what I do contributes to the shifting of our human consciousness, because it's only together we get to experience the good, bad, ugly, and the beautiful. That does not mean I still don't have moments, but I've learned to walk in the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful at kind of the same tempo and welcome it all. Be able to
I,
step.
I like. I really
So,
like that share of walking it all at the same tempo.
yeah, that's what I've learned. And then again, I always say I could be full of S. I could have mine a while ago. I accept all possibilities, but until further notice, I'm going to do this.
All right, brother. Let's wrap it up. So thank you. There's still people watching. You've made it all this way through. That's incredible. Thank you for sticking with us. And again, feel free to share what your thoughts are about what we talked about today. And if you've got any questions, share them with either of us. Reach out on, you can always private message either of us or post them on the shares, and we'll go from there.
We're figuring this out as we go. We're just inviting you to come along for the ride. It's going to be a fun. If you like roller coasters, this is the perfect ride.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. We're not going to be traveling at an altitude of 35,000. We're going to be traveling at an altitude that's about 10 feet. That'll flip you up to 30 and then drop you like a hot stone and then go around. And I don't know. Let's just have fun as we do this.
Yeah. All right, Rawle. And
Yes.
everybody else, thank you.
Be gentle with yourself, people.
Oh, one last thing. It's the legal language. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.